maybe we could lighten it up with someone who's writing about the Israel-Palestine conflict, because Bari Weiss is always fun, is she not?
Oh, of course. She's always got the best takes too. She's always on the right side of everything, right? She has the pulse of what's going on in the elite schools of America all across the country. And by that, I mean, she's clearly very in tune with the everyday American citizen.
Yeah, I like her newsletter. Like every week, features a new person canceled at a different college. It reminds me of I don't know if you guys remember this, but I guess you probably remember better than I do. Like 2014 era, like YouTube, right-wing Gamergate adjacent videos, where like every week they would just read the syllabus of like the liberal arts college of one like a small liberal arts college in Maryland's gender studies 102 course. Just like read just read off a checklist of the books and go, this is absolutely bonkers, because they were all British for some reason. That was not a good British accent, but that's just, the truth. They were all British for some reason. So it really is a kind of a callback to my time in college.
Right. So even when you look at the preface to the era you're talking about, I mean, the whole YouTuber video game culture, right-wing culture came up because of an anger that Anita Sarkeesian was doing, like college level, like feminist critiques of cultural artifacts, in this case, video games. I mean, just literally go to college anytime in the past, like, I don't even know, 30 years. And this is just like stuff you talk about in school, feminist critique of insert media here. But apparently people, young men between the ages of like 12 and 17 had never heard of this before on YouTube, and they were just astounded by it and so angry.
Yeah.
So I don't want to distract too much, sorry, but did you guys see this front page of the Times? New laws to protect university free speech. Government calls time on student cancel culture in state opening of parliament. And I mean, I don't know. I just thought it was very interesting.
Wait, that's the when you said the Times, I didn't look, and I assumed you meant
that's the Times UK.
UK Times, yeah.
They don't what free speech. UK is one of the worst when it comes to that. Are you kidding me?
They have like gag laws. Like you just can't say this will offend the Queen or a powerful person.
Right. Being a journalist in the UK means like you're an independent journalist, I should add, means like you're basically open up to lawsuits for like anything you say. Whereas, props to the US in this one regard, we're pretty protected in terms of like opinion we state or things we put across. We can't be sued for just any old thing.
Relative to the UK, yeah, there are problems, but relative to the UK, definitely. We have better.
For sure.
Yeah. And they make it a lot easier to sue for libel there. But anyway, we need to make sure. And like the amount of I don't know, it's not worth getting into, but just suffice to say, very few cases of cancellation are actually occurring when it comes to speakers at college campuses.
Right. So
should I interrupt you again, Emma? Do you want another interruption? Okay, go ahead.
I'm just like especially hilariously impassioned by this because Bari Weiss, she's able to bring some levity into the conversation about Israel-Palestine. And of course, there's really nothing light about it. Of course, as you may have seen on our show, both Sam and I have been fairly impassioned about the topic. But when you have cancellation queen Bari Weiss, who got her start in this industry by canceling college professors, then got hired by the New York Times, talked about how Ben Shapiro was this vanguard of conservative new right thought. And then when the New York Times wouldn't fire her so she could come up with another cancel culture narrative, she basically self-fired herself and started working for and blogging on Substack. She's been a notorious pro-Israel hawk and pro-apartheid, pro-Israel hawk. And I saw the first paragraphs of her blog post circulating on Twitter today, and I just cannot believe it. The bad optics of fighting for your life is how this piece begins. I am writing to you from the waiting room of my fertility clinic. Getting pregnant when you are gay is not so romantic, so we tried to do little things to make it nice. Last night I took a bath, okay? We watched Mayor of Easttown. Nellie opened a bottle of red. Then she grabbed my stomach and gave me a shot to trigger ovulation. that's, I'm glad that's your life. I don't know what this has to do with Israel Palestine, but let's continue, because before
I also want to add, because you mentioned how this is on Substack, and there's been that whole the whole discourse about Substack. Like literally, like every journalist who moved to Substack for freedom I've seen, they literally write the same way. Like it's not journalism anymore. They just basically are writing like weird live journal posts that they throughout. They just tag in some like current events to make it sound like they're doing something for, on a public level, for like a public policy or
it's gonzo, man. Hey,
I think that's at its core what informs most of mainstream like commentary op-ed articles, though. Like, it may be a little bit more blunt and self-indulgent on Substack. Congratulations on the baby, though, obviously. But
well, no baby yet, because her stomach was grabbed and a shot was shot right into her stomach. She's starting off this piece in order to set the table for, appearing as oppressed as possible.
Well, good luck with the baby. Anyway, the point I was trying to make, just generally speaking, is that like most of the expertise that is on display from like op-ed columnists is just like their thoughts that run through their head as they're going through their day-to-day life. There's like aimless musing. That's like 50% of, popular op-ed columnists, at least prominent ones work. Just like aimless musing about like their day or what kind of sandwiches poor people like, or like even just made up stories, just flat out made up stories about like, some Uber driver they had a conversation with. And so I think that it's just become a very reactionary in the kind of like, in the meaning that like all of their ideas and expertise are informed by their own interpretation and analysis of what's happening to them and people in their direct circle, as opposed to engaging with most of the world.
Right. All right, let's pull this back up for a sec, because we have to get to the punchline here. So essentially she starts off talking about, how she's going to have sex with her wife. I plan to take the morning off. The doctor says that stress is not good for baby making, but sitting here scrolling through my phone, looking at the tsunami of lies that have permeated every Instagram story and every viral meme and every TikTok video and every popular Twitter account, I am weeping. It appears that standing up for the right of,
for a very different reason.
Yes, right. It appears that standing up for the right of innocent people to protect themselves from a genocidal terrorist organization, she's referring to Hamas, not Israel, which she should maybe have some introspection that every Twitter account she follows and TikTok video she sees may have a different viewpoint of her, maybe, reevaluate, has become extremely risky to one's brand. And so lies have replaced truth. Memes have replaced morality. Hashtags have replaced history. Oh man, so true, man. I'm speaking, of course, about Israel. I just like, maybe this isn't the media story, but that is a psychotic intro to your piece.
Well, that's not like the most psychotic thing in this piece. Here's this. The results of this mess, as always, are especially bad for the Palestinians who live under Hamas rule. Casualty reports are hard to verify because Hamas controls the media, even the international press inside. Talk about control the media. Talk about every story starting with Gaza rockets. But anyway, some of these people are entirely innocent non-combatants, including children. This is an unspeakable tragedy. It is also one of the unavoidable burdens of political power, of Zionism's dream turned into the reality of self-determination. Dead kids are just part of it just comes with the job.
Yeah, that's literal psychopathic, sociopathic, imperialist, racist garbage.
I like how she slides. I like how she slides in up front that Hamas controls all the press.
Right.
So, like real quick, the conspiracy theory that Hamas controls all the press in Gaza Strip. Hamas, even international press. So one assumes that every reporter there is forced to pledge allegiance to Hamas before they even step foot.
Yeah, this is Bari Weiss's job. She didn't get her start just like canceling anybody. She got her job canceling Palestinian professors.
Yes, it's just like this perfect amalgamation of like everything bad she's done, basically.
But I do enjoy this new visual I have where like, cause she brought up like, she's not talking about like when she goes to that list, she's not talking about like the old form of like old school or legacy media. She's talking TikTok and Facebook and YouTube. And then she segues to, Hamas controls the media. So now I have this visualization of Hamas running like an influencer agency. We're like trying to shoot TikTok videos with like their influencers spreading their stories that way. Like just unbelievable.
I mean, go ahead. Sorry.
No. Just, the idea that the United Nations, it's taking its cues from Instagram stories and TikTok when they say that what Israel is doing is very likely a war crime. I mean, that's the kind of nonsense she's spewing. And then the Hamas controls the media point. Talk about projection. I mean, those are the exact kinds of bigotry that she rightly decries and other just sane people rightly decry when they're said about Jewish people. And then she's saying it about Hamas. Nonsense.
Well, I mean, just from that beginning, sort of 3 paragraphs. Well, not the full beginning 3 paragraphs, but the last third, the third one, where she says that, she wakes up and she's forced to see people, like tweet about it, like meme about it, like, they don't understand the history. They're not experts in like the conflict. You hear that narrative being pushed a lot. And I just think it's rich coming from Bari Weiss, who like made her bones at the New York Times op-ed section, platforming people from the IDW who were free to espouse on literally any issue they wanted in the pages of the New York Times, on college campuses, regardless of any expertise, and she promoted them. They were like, she was the sole arbiter over whether they had expertise on not even just things like social science or psychology in the case of people like, Jordan Peterson, but on like race science, like genetics, things that are well outside of their own expertise. And it goes to show you how the burden of being an expert is always on the people who are trying to fight the status quo and not those who are coming out in support of it. The idea that like she was doing some kind of rigorous, expertise reporting when she was doing like those photo shoots of the IDW in the dark forest looking like a Swedish detective series. It's a joke. They had no reason or no validity to be writing in half of these things, but that wasn't the problem then. Bari Weiss talking about like race science and Black Lives Matter, any number of things she felt like espousing about when she had no expertise, it wasn't the problem then. But now that we're talking about something that's a little bit, more in the realm of defending the marginalized people from an oppressive regime, it's suddenly, well, we need to see everyone's PhD.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also want to go over this other part about the politics here. For the past few years, leaders within the American Jewish community have been deeply worried about whether the Democratic Party, with the window now in the sails of the Squad, would go the way of Labor under Jeremy Corbyn. That question now seems tragically parochial. I mean, just the writing style again. But anyway, the world had gone Corbyn. Because I would just say that's because Corbyn's righteous. Look online. When Andrew Yang, the front runner of in the New York mayoral race, tweeted on Monday, I don't think he's the front runner anymore, but I'm standing with the people of Israel. AOC rallied the online hordes. The anodyne statement was, she said, utterly shameful, and the pylon ensued. By Wednesday, it was shameful. Again, because it started with the emphasis on the rockets and not everything that led up to those rockets.
Didn't mention Palestine once.
Right. Yang had all but apologized. He didn't. I mean, yeah, he had, but it didn't satisfy really anybody. The ratio is the new veto. I didn't see that.
It is so bizarre where people like Bari Weiss see power. Like literally, the position of the government of the United States is to give full-fledged support to Israel. Like the Biden administration literally said, continue. You have the right to defend yourself to Israel. And Bari Weiss, is out there writing in her Substack about how the world has changed and gone Corbyn, everything coming up Corbyn. I wish. But, the idea that the ratio, she's talking about getting more comments and replies on your tweet than you have retweets and likes, meaning more people are criticizing you than supporting your statement, is absurd.
The ratio is the veto. The ratio is the veto.
Check out the last one. It turns out America didn't need a Corbyn. Really what it found was the same thing Corbyn had, was just awareness of the reality of Israeli apartheid, but I'll continue. It turns out America didn't need a Corbyn. We just needed a Twitter and a few reckless demagogues in Congress. And now supporters of Israel, including many Jews, are so scared of getting bullied online that they've just decided to sit in silence, hoping the lies will dissipate on their own. Again, this is like, it is like the silent minority or majority thing again, right? Like, we're not represented in discourse, but trust us, we're all here, and we're, you know, we're just bullied into silence. It's very funny to me. Good that they're bullied. Good that you're bullied. Good that people no longer feel comfortable saying, hey, those children are part of just our self-determination. Those dead children are part of our self-determination. Good that people don't feel comfortable saying
Yeah,
that.
those means justify our self-determination in the end. Come on.
Well, I mean, I think this is part of a classic obfuscation that she, when she was working at the New York Times was, spearheaded with, leading cancel culture. This idea that you can kind of, make inextricable, informal sanctions, that being yelled at online is the same thing as going to jail, that being like deplatformed is the same thing as being like literally in like some sort of like gulag or something, right? And it's done so that people don't really realize how little accountability we have in this country, right? Or from her perspective, and this is the perspective of a lot of people in power, those are the only kind of sanctions they ever see themselves even close to coming to. And so they become their entire mechanism for understanding power. And some of this is like she mentioned at the front, like, she's bold about it. Like, this is a lot about, more and more celebrities, more and more like influencers who have more and more say about the sort of popular culture. People like Halsey are coming out and saying that this is unacceptable because, you can only look at this kind of violence, just like you can only look at the kind of violence that goes on domestically against people of color for so long and accept that it's just too complicated to understand why things have to be this way. That's
why I go back to the beginning of when she listed all of the things she was going through in terms of her fertility with her partner. That was an effort to basically manufacture some sort of sympathy and aggrievement for her position so that she feels like she has some sort of moral authority to comment on this, right? I mean, that she's gay, she's going through this terrible thing, and all she can think about is the fact that there's rampant anti-Semitism on the left and that she's being canceled in her tweets. I mean, that's kind of what that introduction was designed to do, in my view.
I agree. I think it's kind of just implying that we shouldn't talk about things that are controversial like that because they upset her and she's trying to get pregnant. Like, it stresses her out. Of course, no one's forcing her to go online, obviously, while she's pregnant. But to me, that speaks to a level of solipsism that can't possibly be indulged, obviously, because there are people other than her in the world. We can't all stop talking about, what's going on in the world because Bari Weiss decides that today she needs to live a stress-free life.
It just connected to me that how the piece starts with her journey to motherhood and having a child, and she ends it, or at least later on in the piece, she brings up that portion Matt Leck pulled up where the children need to die for us to realize our
for the Zionist project.
Yeah,
and
for the Zion, right.
And right. AOC's the demagogue. Right? Like,
also giving
psycho.
Great for AOC to speak up on this, really powerful voice, obviously, but people were giving Andrew Yang shit for that tweet way before AOC joined in, and rightfully so, because that Andrew Yang tweet was honestly probably one of the most absurd I saw.
Can we get into that next?
Another mayor candidate deleted pretty much the same statement, the same sort of genre statement. So it wasn't also just Yang. Like, this was a universal condemnation of exactly the issues she just leads the entire time in that piece. Like, right. And she starts off like, we can't get into everything, but she starts off like, why is this happening now? Well, it's because of election irregularities in Palestine. It's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
That is not where you start this story.